Yeah, so we're back. I have Trina. Uh, what's your handle, Trina? On Twitter?
Trina Nugget.
Trina Nugget. Yes, there's a
I
story
really
there as
want to
well.
change it. I really want to change it,
You
but
have no, I don't know. You don't have to change it. But she disclosed to me why she's called Nugget. It has to do with her racist past. No, but I started this podcast back again because I've known too many people on the sphere, so to say, and it's always nice to have these talks with people for the first time. And I thought to have a chat with Trina because she is a full class weirdo in the most spectacular and complimentary way. So, Trina, welcome on the show.
thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we were talking about pre-recording about abnormal people, and this is this is Trina's reality. And so please, no, okay, but
We
why
should have
would
been recording that. It was
yeah, we should have been
good.
we should have been recording. No, but why would you categorize yourself either a normal or abnormal? Could you enlighten us a little bit on that?
I've always loved humans. So, that comes with being observant
Mhm.
and spending years trying to be normal and trying to take cues on how I should be living my life, because I've always been interested in growing. Even if I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, I was trying to learn and get feedback from life. And you try on all these ways of thinking and ways of being, and you're eventually it's inevitable. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't resonate with you. It doesn't feel right. It drains you. And eventually you just have to come to terms with, I like calling it a misfit. I've always felt like a misfit, and I've tried on so many different versions of that. I've always been a social butterfly and flown around to all these different social groups and jobs and paths. And it's you end up just collaging your own version of it and realizing you don't fully fit in anywhere.
I like that collaging your own version. I actually like girls who make collages. It's very cute. But also this word misfit, I see that you hold a good, how would I say this, a good lexicon in how you control or think about these things. Because I actually called myself a Quasimodo without the bump, or a pariah or an outlier or an outcast. But the word
Outlier.
misfit is more cozy and cutesy. How would you then, what is the breaking point for you then? Was it a specific, you don't have to share if it's too intimate, but do you feel it has to be a cataclysmic event, or is it very transitory that it accumulates too much and that you think fuck this, or how do you go about that?
What do you mean the breaking point?
So because you said you've come to grips that you're a misfit, was it just you woke up one day, or was it more?
No, it's this constant exploratory way of being where I've tried to settle into one way of being, and it's just there's stability in instability to me. There's this cohesiveness I feel with a way of life that's very eclectic, and obviously there's limits to that, but I don't know, it's just this constant pendulum swing of exploring all these things, and I don't regret any of those ways of thinking or ways of being I've existed, because I said, I feel I've just come up with my own collage of all of those things, and just carrying that into wherever I am. And yeah, I don't know what the limit is really. It's
Mm-hmm.
I talk on Twitter a lot about how disagreement and individuality, those things go together for me, because it's not, I think we think that everything needs to be aligned for us to get along with people in a certain space or way of thinking or way of being. And that's not really true. You and I were kind of talking about this, but just, I feel good connections aren't I have a very diverse variety group of people that I get along with next on Twitter and normal life, whatever. And I'm what is the common denominator here? And it's just I think a good connection is kind of like a Venn diagram, where whatever you have in common is kind of just anchoring it. And so that can mean a million different things. We get so fixated on the part where we're not the same. And obviously if that part is too heavy in a certain connection, you just don't get along. You shouldn't pretend that you do, but
Yeah.
That means different things for every person that I'm able to talk to or whatnot. So when somebody has a huge intolerance for that, or I just don't vibe with it, it's okay. It doesn't have to mean anything inherently bad. Yeah. It's just bye.
Throw the number in the trash. Or no, the archive chat. That is the most healthy way, actually. Just archive.
Archive chat. I like that.
Yeah, because if you throw it away or delete, there's actually too much energy you put into it. It's almost blocking. It's very forceful, but just archive it. But tell us a little bit more about this Venn diagram, because I have similar theories or techniques that I use. But how would you? Let's say I've never heard about this. You try to explain it to me, like a layman in a coffee shop. Like,
I mean, if you're trying to, I had to like go through a phase of like reverse engineering the ways I've gone about life and what works. And I couldn't find any common denominators just because I am so into variety and like exploring different kinds of people. And the Venn diagram was what I thought of because it's like, I was like, how do I connect with so many different kinds of people? And I just have like, I don't know if this sounds arrogant or what, but I have an ability to find that place where we do overlap and do overline very naturally. And that's what, I mean, that's where we connect. Like, I don't know what that obviously means different things for different people, but I mean, we're all human. Like there's always something we have in common. Like it's very easy for me to focus on what we have in common. Of course, this has also come with phases of like, maybe fixating too much on what we have in common. Like when we were talking about being abnormal, like trying too hard to match the energy type lessons, like that's not me. Like you can go too far with that too, and like compromise your sense of self.
How does one not compromise one's sense of self then? Let's say I'm a young girl listening to this and I see Trina there and think, I don't want to compromise myself. What kind of tips can you give her?
Unfortunately, I think
nothing, absolutely nothing. I compromise myself every second. Okay, not just for a young girl then. How can a person, as a more, what do you call it, like operating system,
No, I mean, unfortunately I think it comes with having to compromise. Like, I don't know how this sounds, but compromise it, go through experiences where you've compromised a little bit, like whether it's a young girl hanging out with a group of people where she kind of compromises that thing she's about that the group's not about or whatever it is. And that comes with discomfort that I think our feminine sides or our feminine nature can be really resistant to, because so it's tricky to advise that, like, because you can also, it's like you shouldn't willingly put yourself in these high resistance situations, because then you can just act out and be triggered in these ways that really like sacrifice, like just compromise you, like have you, like, because it's also not good to just recklessly run headfirst into a bunch of things that trigger you and that don't align with you, right? But if there is somewhat of that necessary to discover what doesn't and kind of hone like what your actual intuition or instinct is, because I feel like since we're such emotional creatures as women, you have a huge problem not being able to discern between our intuition and our insecurities. And that's like the biggest it's the biggest like weapon you have as a woman, because we have this sense of intuition, and we can really misplace this trust we should have on it, and like really rely on and extend it to other people or extend to ourselves. But when you are not clear on that with yourself, you can operate out of fear and insecurity and project on all these things, and really like arrogantly go about navigating social situations or personal growth in a way that's like, that's not intuition, that's something that you haven't dealt with or confronted with yourself yet.
There's more, so
it's really tricky. I think girls need a lot more grit than that's one of my biggest gripes with areas on Twitter is like, it's been extremely important to me to like lean into my feminine energy and know how to be soft and not that like independent combative like energy or whatever. And that's important for women everywhere. We're seeing that all over the world, but it's also not fair to condone this idea of like shooting to the other end of the spectrum, where girls have no backbone, no sense of self, no strength, and no resilience. I think it kind of makes you a liability in ways that like the manosphere tends to overlook. Like it's just not a well-integrated perspective.
It definitely makes them a liability, mostly for themselves, to be honest. Not because of there are like weight classes, when you have athletic events between men and women, not that they're per se physically weaker or something, but because of the unhinged chaotic forces, they can become a liability to themselves. You mentioned reverse engineering, Let's rewind a little bit back. What do you mean by that? Do you then journal, or you have a cup of coffee every morning, or how do I see it?
I do both of those things every day.
But then more so
Twitter also likes to demonize coffee, so I'm about to get canceled.
I'm drinking coffee right now.
I just had some.
Yeah. No, but you said you had a long spell of, I'm paraphrasing a little bit what I heard, of reverse engineering. Was it then what I've done as well, like copious amounts of journal, and then oh wow, this thing says meeting time will run out. 1 second. Some technical issues, guys. We're back. Anyway, no, but what do you do? No,
that was mine.
Yeah.
Oh, Telegram. Let me close this.
No, but does it involve then something like heavy journaling and then rereading these journals for, for the layman out there? Because I've done that as well, like quarterly or yearly, or how do you go about it?
Well, since leaning more into the fact that self-discovery is my jam and like self-awareness and clarity and shamelessness and all that, wanting to extend that to other people, which is kind of, I think, my purpose, and wanting to focus more on my messaging on Twitter. And I have clients that I work with now that I help. And, it's like reverse engineering is this big phase that I've used with myself and not really known, or I've kind of naturally grown through things, right? And then I land in these places that leaves me able to help people who aren't at this place yet, whatever this place means. Yes. And now that I'm trying to do that intentionally, I'm in this phase of reverse engineering how I got to this place in all those different ways. Gotcha. So now it's like, oh, Trina seems pretty shameless expressing herself. It's like, how do you do that? It's like, how did I do that? And then reverse engineer, it's so many rabbit holes you go down, because it's not an easy, just direct generalizing answer, right? Like, it's like, oh, I went through X, Y, Z, and then I ran into some shit there, and then that didn't work, and then whatever. So when I write on Twitter, it's like writing it's very often, sometimes it's inspired by conversations I have with friends or the clients or other people, because I've kind of always been that person people come to talking about things, which is crazy because I'm like little old me, crazy, always feeling like she needs to like learn or grow or heal in some way, but I have also always been that person. And so now it's like I write to a you, like a lot of us do that, right? We write on Twitter to a second person. And it's very often to a previous version of me, or a version of me that was like earlier in the journey that really needed to hear that, which I feel like is who I'm talking to when I help people. Like that's like part of the Venn diagram thing too. It's like we're connecting in that space where I had to learn this thing about myself, and maybe that helps you learn this thing about yourself.
I do that too, for the Twitter peeps listening to this. Like they always, what is your technique to tweet? I do that, I think I picked that up from other people as well. You
answer those questions like you have gone through that.
Yeah.
Sometimes people ask me and I'm like, oh wait, you're right. Like I need to figure out how I did that.
But yeah, I just tweet to like a past version of myself, even an older version, of last week or something. If I had to self-correct, I made a mental note of it. And then as I'm conjuring up a tweet about a certain team, I just basically speak to myself. And I know that I'm at least that normal, that there's going to be minimally one other person in my following, of the mass. That is going to think, oh yeah, hey, wait, I was doing that as well. Like, how did he know that? Well, I just fucked up like, yesterday or some shit.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Did you ever have to go through a phase? Because you're like the creative, like it's one of the things we connected over. Is like you're like that creative weirdo artist.
I thought it was because we were Asian.
Both.
Oh my God, yeah, sorry.
Or what did one of our mutuals voted out, like the yellow poets or whatever? Like I said yellow. I made a joke about being yellow because I make Asian jokes, but it's like the Asian poet, like Pisces or whatever type. But that's a huge part of it, like that weird creative artist soul. Did you ever have to go through a phase? Like what was the phase of like having to transition excuse me, from that to like, because you're not afraid to sell things on Twitter, and you're not afraid to market yourself, and you air quotes play the game. And I've been getting over that hump recently, and I think I'm still moving through it, but I had to get over this idea of like, it's distasteful to the idea of like actually marketing myself or selling things.
Yeah.
So over that?
I think I got over that, because I think deep down it's a part of deserving. And I think, let's say I have some friends on Instagram, they're also a little bit on Twitter. Let's say you have to sell a fucking painting, you have to sell it, like who's gonna do it for you? Let's say you bootstrap to the ground, you have to do it yourself. You don't have like a PR person, shouting out your name and shit like that. That's hard work. And similar to any type of more creative type of person, let's say I want to sell my next book or any piece of writing or blog, I have to say this is my voice and XYZ payment walls behind it and yada yada. It comes with an inherent sense of self-validation or deservingness. What I mean by that, like somebody said, yo, your Twitter account is growing massively, or you reach that number. I'll be like, yo, bro, I deserve that and way more. And earlier, I see all these fake statue lion accounts with garbage, drink water, or when you drink water, you're not hungry. Sorry if I'm subtweeting somebody, but it's unbecoming to, how do I say this? Let's say I equate myself to a pure novelist. I said this on the other cast the other day. Let's say Hemingway would have access to the Twitter bird app, Twitter, or Jack Kerouac. Would he say something as trashy as those stupid platitudes with no soul, no heart, nothing? No, they would not do that. And I see myself in a faux or, like a lineage like that. I am not per se of that lineage, but let's say I'm like a pure novelist in this thematic, example that we're talking about. I take that with a certain honor and dignity and self-respect and deservingness that I'll just fucking pluck myself to the fucking moon. And I've come to the grips, like, for example, like a great guy, what's his name? Cold Email Wizard, Daniel, you've met him, I think.
Yeah, that's my homie.
Yeah, no, but he's one of the more, how do you call it? His offer is really validated. He's well respected in the community, everything. He does it well, by the books or whatever. But I put myself, because he's my peer in terms of probably like age, he's probably younger than me or something, but he makes his cash flow is insanely, significantly bigger than mine. I can tell you that, up front. But still, I feel that my voice is unmatched in terms of that. To give an answer that you have to believe in yourself. That's basically what I was trying to relay here. And
yeah, those are, I mean, that kind of parallels with what's made me start getting over it. It's kind of realizing, like, I mean, I would see other people doing these things and objectively having these certain qualities, and it's like, why haven't I gotten that yet? And it's like, oh, because you haven't gotten over yourself. Because I think we think that like ego just looks like taking up space and selling things and blah blah, but it's also the other end of ego, which is like, I'm too good to sell my shit. Like, I'm just doing my thing out here, is what I kind of felt like. And it's very like cliche artist type, where you think that you're too good on the other end of it. And it's like, okay, no, I deserve to sell my stuff and push my stuff out there and like promote myself. And
it's fine. It's also because the times are a little bit changing. I was talking with Niels about that. Him and me used to be quite purist like that as well. And there's another author, his name is Thomas J. Bevan, really great writer. But they both got over it, to be honest. I see them because they have to sell their stuff.
Niels is one of my favorites in our corner. Yeah. Just like y'all both have that like artist soul.
Yeah, he's cool. No, but so we had long, intensive talks about that actually, off screen, and just like, it's really funny how some people had sold, Twitter growth packages and stuff like that. And I just asked him, I know it's within your skill set and mine, but why didn't we do that? And then these huge conversations follow and stuff like that. And in hindsight, it led me to my specific spot as well. You were talking about tangentially how everything has a little bit of purpose, that you have to earn that, this space that you're in right now. And then another person would say, how did you get there? Well, through not giving up on your own frame, voice, or, not being corrupted or compensating a little bit, tying back to what we talked about,
Yeah.
And feel free to ask questions. My podcasts are more like conversations. I'm not an FBI interrogations. I keep that for the DMs with women, like private.
Oh, we have less. Good.
Because, just keep talking. Yeah.
Okay. And thank you for that, because the last podcast I was on, I just conversed, and they would be like, okay, well, I can't answer that question, but I'm trying to ask you questions. I'm like, oh, okay. You can literally hear it on the podcast. I'm like, oh, what about you? And they're like, I'm asking you questions here. I'm like, oh shit, okay. I thought this was a conversation.
So we're back. So I hope I gave Trina a perfect answer, like how I got to the point that I felt deserving. And I just wanted to ask her, like, do you think I gave you a right answer? in the sense that how does one know when you're deserving enough, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting how you frame it as deserving. Because I thought of how other people probably have to go about it the opposite way, right? Like people hop on Twitter ready to grow an audience and make money and sell things and promote themselves. Like that's where they start. Whereas we start on the other end of the spectrum where it's like, I kind of just ended up there to self-express. So whereas they need to work towards deserving the room to be more authentic and just like self-express, we have to work towards the deserving of like, I want to promote myself and sell shit.
Yeah.
Another way we're abnormal.
Yeah, so two sides of the spectrum working together or working towards a middle ground or something like that. That's very interesting, actually, now that you say it. Because there are some people, they do it very well. What's his name? Lobo, brother Lobo. He never sold something, or Mike Medici, or Ascendant Power. They're these big accounts that are really big, and they are big on that they've never sold something. Maybe one day they'll sell something. Lobo has this shoe in the future, and Medici said maybe he'll sell a watch or something. But it's very organic then, you know? In that
he seems really cool. I've never met him or known him, but his account, yeah.
You mean Medici or Lobo?
Oh, Lobo. I'm Medici too, but I was talking about Lobo.
Yeah.
Like,
No, but I mean, it comes naturally in that sense that for some people like us, for example, we were talking about my good friend Niels, he's also on Twitter. He was selling his dating course. And he explained to me, I think it's in the intro, so I can say that it comes from experience that he had with a couple girls and specifically one more. And it was almost like an homage he gave like in the forward to that. Not that he liked that girl that much, but the parts of his brain that got working in a very organic way that he then felt deserving to finally give the gold nuggets, which it's a great book. I read it, by the way. But similar to me that I can express with the whole cigar thing. I've been smoking now cigars for like almost 5 years. I would round that up to say it cool, like half a decade, you know, to make it sound bombastic or some shit. But if somebody legit asked me some dumb beginner stuff that I'm sometimes too hard pressed on those kind of stuff. I'll be like, you know what, I'll write a frequently asked question or put a module in my cigar course or put up a free blog or something like that. Because on a day, I get maybe 5 to 10 DMs asking the same cigar question. And, you know, I get a little bit tested by that. And maybe then I thought to myself, wait a minute, I'm past this shit. And then, I sometimes I have to, cool off a little bit with that. But it's organic to stay on point,
Sometimes I have to get over that too, because I feel like some life lessons that I want to speak on are so overplayed. And I forget that I'm trying to speak to an audience that's not overplayed for them, or like,
it isn't, yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably what you experienced. Wait, did you just decide to do the cigar thing because you're into it? Like how did that happen?
Yeah. So it is part of, so the story went, so I shared you actually off screen that I'm going to this festival that we and there at that festival, pre-COVID, I was waiting near the bathroom ground at like a meeting point for all my friends. They had to freshen up and whatever. I was just standing there and it was this random guy. He took off the label of a cigar. So I still don't know what it was. It was a big cigar. He said, "You there, you look like you would enjoy this." I said, "What is that?" So it's this weird brown phallic thing. He said, "This is a cigar. I bought it. I wanted to try it, but I don't like the taste of it at all." I said, "Yo, you even smoke that shit?" It was hardly smoked, nothing off, He said, "But you can have it." I said, "You sure?" He said, "Yeah, just have it." I said, "Okay, give it to me." Because I am a smoker. I've smoked cigarettes as well. Some people, that bridge is maybe harder for them to enter a world of tobacco. Let's say you've never smoked cigarettes or vaped or nothing nicotine based. Maybe it's harder than because you think it's unhealthy. Maybe it's true, whatever. The point of it, I'm an immigrant and Dutch, we like free shit. I will never say no to free shit. So even if it was weird, I'll just throw it away the next second. But I have an item for 1 second, and if he disappears out of sight, I'll throw it away. But I've got.
But you won't turn it down.
No, I would never turn it down. But so a couple seconds later, my friends come back, and I was holding it, and then they really like the mystique of it, the prop. Like it's like a show, very showmanship. There are a couple of photos that I still to this day see from that time. Is like almost like 3 to 5 years ago, and that was my first cigar ever. And then flash forward, I went to Thailand, and there was a layover at the Dubai terminal, and there was a small cigar shop. And then I thought, you know what, on vacation, it must be nice to smoke a cigar near the pool. That was the idyllic idea of it. And well, I smashed this Thai girl, and then I had a five-star resort pool up top, and I thought,
Oh,
let me smoke a cigar, just because I felt like it. And that sentiment stuck with me, how it made me feel so special. I thought it was the shit, and cool Thai girl, blah, whatever. But point of it was a little bit like semantically,
ah.
ritualistically intertwined with that, and that made it special for me. And ever since that, you can, if people control search on my Twitter, they can find from where it started, and they were like, yo, Fury's now, smoking cigar. And then now, what did Gladiator land on a friend of mine on Twitter? He said, Fury is single-handedly bringing thousands of dollars to the cigar business world.
For real, you're the ultimate cigar product placement in life.
Yes,
No,
I
that's
have
so cool
convinced.
because that's such a symbol for you now. And like, it's like all those different things you're experiencing and like enjoying at that moment kind of centered around this thing, and you attached to that cigar for you. So now that's your thing. That's your jam. That's cool.
It's very totemic, it's a totem. It has that item of it. And it is very, it's very facilitatory to parts of my personality, actually, that I always call myself both a gatekeeper, but also like a skeleton key. And then for me, this cigar is a skeleton key to experiences that I was going through, just as you just said now. And it's very like like a yin and yang between me and the cigar, that apparently these pictures are like a foil to people what can be experienced. Take away the cigar, it's still a nice experience, maybe, at the beach or whatever.
Skeleton key, that's cool. I
And
never
I
hear that term used.
And I actually want to say that the more liquid personalities like you are also like skeleton keys, I would say, if I dare say so, that people want to pick you up.
Red flag.
Yeah, people want to pick you up and use you as a skeleton key to enjoy, to enjoy the present moment that they are actually allowed to enjoy by themselves. And a lot of new age spirituality talks about it. Just let go. The present moment is right there in front of you, as if there's this mythical gateway or door that they have to allow themselves to enjoy it. But then they see somebody with personality traits such as our own, like, hey, wait a minute, I am allowed to enjoy life. Life can be allowed to enjoy. Like, can I ask you a question? Can I enjoy life? And yeah.
Presence is so huge. You're really you. I remember you gave me some great advice on that in terms of like, oh, you were talking about like music and just really doing what you're doing, basically, just like be here now type shit. But that comes very naturally to you. And I think a lot of people struggle with, and like that's what, like, socially, that's where it came naturally for me most, is like, this person is in front of you and you're experiencing this. It's not mutually exclusive with, having intentions or doing something serious or whatever you're there to do. But it's like, it's kind of productive to like show up and not be present and do what you're trying to do. People get so stuck in their heads, and it's like, you can tell when you try to talk to them. Sometimes it's like, hello, hi.
Probably took the vaccine or some shit.
Don't get me.
Or they plugged into the matrix again on some shit.
Oh, I'm the black sheep in my family with that too.
But I would say, I've heard these statistics or fun facts, they're not fun at all, that some people don't have an internal dialogue, or when you ask them visualize a red apple, they can't visualize the color red. It's opaque or gray almost. And it means that they, as a child, they hadn't had an imagination. And it goes to show then that's why they're so reductive in their presence. They can't do it, it doesn't mean that they're forever stuck with that. They can, cultivate it.
Really sad.
I'm not a doomsayer here or whatever.
I know, but it's like, oh my gosh, people live their whole lives without that shit.
Yeah, apparently they need to play some Pokemon or some shit, or you.
Oh, and I know, but it's also like, oh, you think that's for real? Like, not the red apple part. What was the part you said before it?
No internal dialogue.
Yeah, like that trips me out. To think that people, it just means you don't have a conscience, and people have this like pop version of conscience in their head where it just means this voice inside that just like do the right thing. It's
Yeah.
like, no, that's not what your conscience is. Like conscience has a little bit more personality than that if you would just let it.
Actually, yeah. So I used to like to read a lot of neuroscience. And let's say there's one main governing thinking model is that people can experience things through all the senses, but then internally as well. Let's say in the neurological landscape, you can see things that would be then categorized as internal sight. These come then in the form of images, or you can hear things like farts or music or melodies, whatever, or you can just feel things, you know?
For a second, I thought you said farts.
Farts.
Sorry.
Yeah, I came up with a
I was
word
like,
the other day, but it has some connotations there. I have to be careful how I pronounce it. I have that. When I have a new word, it's like a new toy for me. I just whip it out like the whole time.
me too. I love breaking down connotations, but it doesn't sit with other people the same. So it's kind of just for me, I think.
But coming back,
Sorry.
some people maybe then that when they don't have an internal dialogue, do have an internal kinesthetic cascade, like a waterfall of emotions going on perpetually. But then still, then to operate in this world, let's say you're speaking to another person, you would have to translate that internal sense to a form of dialogue. So there would be an intermediary part where you break down a feeling. Let's say you would label this as rage or love or whatever, and you want to chunk it down into, hey, I really appreciate talking to you. That sentence had to be formed somewhere. There's not like, it's not 1, 2, and it's suddenly out in the world. And that's why we have a brain. And it's sad what it means that they're tapped into a very subconscious way of thinking, tapped into the matrix, or like in spirituality, they would say the wrong radio signature waves out there or frequencies, that they're not aligned with a very will to power and Nietzschean, that they are governing or free men or women, that they are allowed to say what they want to say. You know, you have to have a certain agency, you know, instead of that stupid lip tarted shit like that. Have some agency over what you think and discern and filter and say the right stuff, you know.
Yeah.
That is the scary part, actually, then, you know.
I think that's what it's mostly about. It's like people want to just like get into this space and like acquire all these things, whatever it is, whether it's in a conversation or they're trying to grow in some way or
Yeah.
like succeed in whatever they're trying to succeed in. And it's not as much about acquisition as it is about, I mean, maybe for our type, maybe for our type, but like for the masses, I think it's more about getting rid of shit, like shedding all of these things you think need to be this way or whatever. Because sometimes, and then like it's just like what you were just pointing to when we showed up to a conversation. They're like, oh, you're right, I can just do it like this. And it's like, yeah, but
Yeah.
that doesn't have to do with like you being like, oh, I'm gonna do this. It's more like, all right, that's gonna be what it is, or this is gonna play out the way it is. That's a huge thing that drew me to the spirituality concept, because I was always into psychology. But at a certain point, like the lingo just felt so, that's something that felt overplayed for me. And because I've always liked poetry and like lyrical shit that just transcends like this, like XYZ, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
When I mean, I look back at childhood journal entries and I'm like, I sound pretty spiritual in a lot of them. So I feel like I've always had that. But when you find that school of thought, like that's a huge part of why I look at things through that lens, and like my account speaks through that lens a lot. I think it's really.
And what is this lens then? Like, which authors are we talking about, or which schools of thoughts, or could you give it a name? Like,
oh, that question always makes me feel a little guilty, because I feel like because I'm clearly into the spirituality stuff and looking at things through that way, people always think that I've read all these books on spirituality, and I should, and I really should. I really should, but I haven't.
that's interesting. Oh, well, actually, you come to the right guilty party. So I was talking a lot about if it were to be categorized, Zen Buddhism, Bushido, and Taoism. And I almost felt bad for them because they thought I was speaking the gospel of somebody like Musashi or the Tao Te Ching from Lao Tzu, the Taoism, you know, things, these tomes that exist. You can just buy them on Amazon, whatever. And they were like, oh, bro, have you read it? You know, can you tell me more about this? I was like, actually, no, I didn't read it. Somebody just, it just came to me. And these things are maybe then a little bit more my natural talent. They always say what comes easily or almost effortlessly to you is your natural talent, contrasting to another person. But however, you know, the book bookworm that I am, or voracious reader, I did end up reading them, after the fact. And it kind
Yeah,
of,
me too. That's what I do. And I love it. I love when people tell me something I posted or shared or said that reminds them of somebody, because then I can look that person up and it's like, oh shit, I vibe with this. Like, I love this quote or whatever. Like, that's how I feel you.
yeah, it's nice. It means that actually I would dub it or number it as that we're aligned with a certain truth that has
Yeah.
come naturally through life experiences, iteration, awareness, however you want to label it. But that's just how life is supposed to be learned, very haphazardly, and just falling and picking yourself up. And then the truths of life will be granted to you, you know?
Yeah. Such a trippy journey. I always get sent men. I'm like waiting to be sent a woman.
I always misheard that, but you're talking about men authors and novelists, right?
Yeah. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'll get like a set, like a Stoic philosopher or something.
No, but I was actually talking to a girl pre-recording about this then, but you did read poetry. Which are the great female poets then, according to you? Emily Dickinson, but is there somebody else? There's only her, actually, right? Or maybe I'm misread on that.
Oh, Sylvia Plath is cool.
She's really good, yeah. I've read mostly analyses about her. She's so iconoclastic that people love to talk about Sylvia Plath, actually.
Yeah, I love the women like that who like they get it. I'm so bad at names, remember? Or we didn't talk about this in this recording, but you get that. I can have a whole conversation about a topic I'm extremely familiar with, or a person I know very well, and I can't tell you the title, the name, the movie that I watched that I'm talking about, but I can tell you everything about it. You understand. That was very unique that you understood that I have this, like, I don't know. I just like there's a holes in my perception when it comes to names and titles.
It's good. It means actually that I have this like multiple hypotheses or theories about that, is that life has been given through us in a certain sense that actually doesn't have a name. And the human senses, such as broken down to the five senses or the sixth sense or whatever, are actually a fractalization of the true reality and the big stimuli. It's actually too much to absorb, and that's why we break it down into I saw this, I feel this, whatever. But if you were truly, let's say you open all your chakra gates or some shit, then you could take it all in, kind of. But that is not the mere mortal kind of way. And then we dumbed it down, broken it down, and Rumi talks about this, I think. But then there are people like you. I have a lot of friends like this. They'd be like, I'm really bad with names, but they do know it because they've sensed it or felt it or experienced it. That would be a better word then. But they can't, label it, because labeling linguistics actually breaks it down and dumbs it down and lessens it and cheapens it. And that is that Ludwig Wittgenstein quote that the limit of your vocabulary or your lexicon is the limit of your world. So that's why my vocabulary.
Oh, I like that.
That's why my vocabulary is like hyper verbose or like out of this world, just to piece together what life would be giving to you. That's why actually people go to another chapter or domain to paint. I actually have so vivid or crazy ass dreams that I have this huge urge to become a master painter, just to portray what I saw, because that cannot be put in words, actually, what I see.
Transcend language. And it's so paradoxical, because we obviously love words, but we're also like kind of detached from them on a certain way. Yeah. So that resonates with me so much, because it also makes it feel okay, right? Like I've always been like, why can't I remember these fucking names?
Yeah, no. When I was younger, I maybe would have like fallen out with you, like, why can't you remember? But one of my he has that. We have this joke actually that in the morning we're like this blank slate or like a blank page, and we hardly don't know anything. Like we're so malleable, so childish, and so innocent. And then we have to restart the day. And let's say he has like something to do for work. He has like and this is a grown man, if he's listening to this, like I really respect him, whatever. But he has a list that he has to jog himself to get into the business person that he is, to show up to work, to be a normal human being, or else he's just this blob, like, just there. And if you see me in the morning, like, and if I haven't, had my like moment to myself, I'm like that as well, actually, so.
Yeah. And I think it just is way too much to deal with for a lot of people. It's like, I need to be able to, you have to be okay with being all over the place to a large extent, which we clearly are.
Yeah, but how would one then come to grips with that? Let's say there are a couple other misfits, as you coined it, Trina. Like, let's say there's a person listening to this, and this person think I'm a fucking weirdo. Not me, but they're thinking to themselves, "Yo, I'm a fucking weirdo." They're looking in the mirror, but what would you say to them?
It tends to be the common denominator of people I work with too. It's, there are things you can do to help free yourself along the way, but the biggest ones, like the biggest breakthrough moments in your life of just freeing yourself to be all over the place like that, is just, they come from just throwing yourself out there and trying shit and being wrong and failing. And it sounds so cliche, but it's so true, because you have to keep giving a fuck about things and then like just run out. Like like all the different jobs, social groups, ways of thinking we've both tried on, you explore that, and it's like, all right, like none of that worked, so you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna go do my thing, and whatever that looks like, it's gonna look like. And
yeah, actually, I have a small anecdote to share with that. It has stuck with me in my head because in the spirituality, in the lessons of spirituality, they have this thing that we are all basically images of our consciousness, right? I'm in your head, I'm in your head, you're in my head, and we're all reflections of this big consciousness, basically, and that we're all making this up, what's real. And what's really fascinating, I was in Lisbon, Portugal, and there was this young Italian man, young because he's younger than me. And I could tell he was almost like a past image of myself, He had a frown on his face, but so it was not hardcore music, but the music was loud, and you were supposed to either be dancing there or drinking at like a stall right there. So it wasn't a club, but outside, a little bit like a festival vibe. But he was not having it. He was more in his head, But he looked like me, like when I was younger. And then as a juxtaposition, this time gradient that you talked about trials and tribulations. When I was younger, I was just like him. But I was dancing like a complete idiot on the dance floor. There was this Portuguese, like a MILF. She said to me, "Are you a professional dancer?" I said, "I'm not." And why is this? You're lying, And I was saying, "I'm not. Don't embarrass me." But she was into me. It was a nice party vibe, But I've gotten used to making a complete ass on myself on the dance floor. Like I said before the recording, that I have two modes actually. So I can just be standing like a statue in the middle of the dance floor, thinking about what I'm gonna eat tomorrow, or Nietzsche, or why didn't this girl text me back, and like 50 million things at the same time, like a robot. And then we're like, Fury, clearly you're not drinking tonight or something, But or the exact opposite of the spectrum. Once I turn the switch, or the dial's a little bit broken for me, there's no in between. I turn into this like dancing weird ass party monster. And it was only through trials and tribulations. I've made a fool of myself on many dance floors across many countries, where they will have forgotten all about me, only like a mere specter, like a ghastly specter in their recesses of their mind. But do I really care? No. I was drunk as fuck. Like, why would I care? I only now have the story as an anecdote. I do remember it for that, because I'm a writer. The next day, oh, that's interesting, But as I was younger, I was actually writing about that. Then, oh, whoa, this MILF approached me. Oh, she was fine. I did this thing. No, I don't give a fuck now. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's just another, because I've done it. I've lost count, to be honest, and it's not to toot my own horn, but
that's just how that's just how it happens. That's part of
it actually brings me back, like in the beginning of the show, you were, or this conversation, you were using the word being a lot, like it's about a certain way of being, and being always trumps doing. I found, once you stop doing and just start being, you can enter the present moment, and that is what people have to learn to let go,
Right, when they're asking you how they try to be something, they're already not doing it, like it's like that's not what it's about. Like, just be, don't try to be, just be.
Yeah.
And it's also not like a linear journey. Like, I think people think that you just reach this one landing place of being.
That's very
we're humans too. It's like there'll be that minute of like, oh shit, am I like looking crazy? And it's like, oh yeah, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
we're humans. Like, it's not, you don't reach this one resting place and then you're perfectly shameless about, like, perfectly 200% shameless over the rest of your life. Then you're not a human in that way either.
That's a very good one. Yeah, the how you coined it, like the non-linear part of it. It can go very slow at first. Maybe there are plateaus if somebody were to make those cool Jack Butcher, Jake Molina kind of graphs, you know, for planet.
Yeah. Dan Coe is great at that too.
Yeah, but you know, just plateau a little bit and then you break through and you know, and maybe you fall back or something.
Yeah.
It's
But your baseline changes is what I think the big thing that we're talking about is like overall, like, you know, you don't dip down into this it sounds arrogant, but like lower level of
that is very true, you know.
Like you passed that stage.
Yeah, no, that's actually very true. So I can be candid about that. So a lot of people ask me why I made my Twitter account, right? Well, part of
Why did you make your Twitter account?
So Jocko Willink, when he was a new guru, he only had one social media, which was Twitter. I believe wholeheartedly that it was one of his first 1,000 followers, you know, you know, and now he has 600,000 followers on Twitter or something. Jocko Willink, you know, that Navy SEAL guy.
I don't know if I know who you're talking about, but that's of course the name.
He's just like he always posts his pictures of 4 a.m. in the morning, you know, doing his workouts and stuff like that, you know, and he has this. Never mind. Anyway, he was one of those guys. But I followed him and I joined groups, hashtags and stuff like that, work out with them a little bit what I do now, but I stay away from the consumption side of the social media. I'm now more on the creator side of it. And
I mean, we're all consumers that just as a byproduct of being fucking alive. It's like, it's not this binary, like I'm a creator, I'm a consumer. It's like everybody's a consumer, but not everybody's a creator.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like every writer is a reader.
Right.
Whoa, the meeting will end in 10 minutes again. I think we'll maybe have to wrap it.
Damn, time is flying.
Yeah, that's a good sign. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
But every writer is a reader, but not every reader is a writer, you know.
Yeah, it's like you can't just if you're not getting any input, you wouldn't be outputting anything.
Exactly. We used to learn that at classic school. There are these 3 steps of a process. In Latin, it's called Translatio, imitatio, translatio, emulatio. It means first you imitate, you copy and you steal. Then you take these parts like synthesis and then you transverse it into your own art or craftsmanship, whatever. But the last part is the most important part, is to be better and to add your own part. It's that Bruce Lee quote, you know, take what is
water.
No, not that one. Take what is uniquely yours. No. Take what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely yours. And most people forget that last part, to be honest, you know?
Yes. And that's, I think, the biggest thing with that's another thing, is like how to be authentic. It's like, there's nothing new under the sun. That doesn't mean that you like don't have your own unique new like thing. Like that's what it is. It's like the difference between two people this is why like energy is like there's some things that just transcend how to be authentic, right? It's like you arrive, like what we just talked about, where like you'll remind somebody of a philosophy or something. It's like you arrive at something that was already arrived at some point in the history of the world, or was right next to it. But because it goes through you and your experience, and you output it, you spit it out in this, whatever it is, words, conversation or whatever, unless it goes through that filter of you, it doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't matter that it's been said before. Because I think people skip that and they're like, skip to the like, oh, this has worked. There's nothing new under the sun. Let me copy it and regurgitate it. And because it didn't actually go through you, like genuinely filter through you, as in like your own thoughts, your own mind, your own experiences, you reaching something that was that, then it doesn't come out of you in any sort of real way. Then that's actual copying. Like that's actual just regurgitation, and it's not what it's about. Like that's why you don't, what people who go about it that way, like they don't find real meaning.
That's really good. What I heard, you know, like paraphrase.
Whatever it did, that I don't even know if that makes sense.
It did make sense for me, like, because I heard that it has to go through you to be of you, you know, it has to be in you first to come out of you. If you just like an assist in soccer, you just pass it along or something, you didn't even touch it, you didn't make it, is not yours to give.
They don't even process it.
And that is very distasteful, in my honest opinion, actually, how some people do that. It's not yours to give because you never owned it. You didn't consume it, you didn't buy it, you didn't give the cost or the price for it. And that is very palpable and can be smelt, you know?
A very normie thing.
On that note, that's because this thing is annoying the hell. No, but any last thoughts? Where can people find you, or or anything to plug by Trina? No.
You can find me on Twitter at Trina Nugget. All my handles are there, and I'll be starting my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my newsletter there. Stay tuned for my YouTube channel, and welcome to the Freak Show.
That's such a cool call to action, by the way. You should end each of your mails like that.
Welcome to the Freak Show.
And there are actually a couple of freaks on Twitter. They're cool guys. I really like them. Hey,
they're my favorite.
He's on the podcast tomorrow, guys. Oh, well, they're listening to this in sequentially. But so anyway, this was a rebooting of the HOOA podcast once more. And that's why I invited the freak, weirdo, misfit, uber spontaneous Trina. Because
thanks for inviting me. This was so fun.
It is super fun. I'm still recording, by the way, so don't give away any.
Oh.
No, but it was super fun, and I thought to end it on a high note. I felt the catharsis. I always feel it in the back of my mind when the catharsis is hit, and then actually you should stop recording. But sometimes you jerk it out, you wank it out a little bit longer,
I don't know what that's like.
From a creative point of view, that's what I meant. But I really felt that. I really felt that when the flow state.
Yeah, this is our first time talking face to face.
Yeah, so and I wanted people to have that spontaneity as a meta lesson that they can feel that. Let's say they couldn't put it to words. What I speak about with flow and spontaneity and being yourself, it can be felt behind the screens, even if there's some stupid technical issues, garbage and stuff like that, or haphazard stuff, or I curse every 5 seconds, or I'm dozing off, or whatever. And this is what people live for, actually. And this is why, coming back, if people were yo, hey, Fury, how's he so shameless or whatever, because I don't give a fuck, I was just talking to Trina, and the record button was on because I believe that somebody wanted to hear this. And for the listeners, thanks for tuning in again. There's some podcast lovers that were waiting for this one for years, probably, or some shit. Yeah, so just follow me at HOOA Fury. Everybody knows my name by now, so it doesn't really matter. I don't have to plug in.
Wow.
Yeah, you have to end it like that. No, but thanks so much. Thanks for coming on the show, Trina. Thank you very much.
For having me.
Until the next show.